Hey everyone, welcome to episode 108. I'm your host Stelios and the founder and director of the Ceres Pure Food Innovation. There's no real updates for this episode, so where possible, I'd like to keep the introductions before the podcast nice and short and sweet. But take a second to click and share of any of our social media feeds. It really helps others find us. And whilst you're there, why not send this episode to others that might be interested too? Chances are, if you listen to it, your friends in the industry might want to listen to it too. I always want to hear your feedback, so email me anytime at stelios@worldofceres.com. As you may have noticed, we have started slotting these ads at the beginning of the podcast. We'll never insert ads at the middle to break the conversation, so we hope that's cool. It just gives us a chance to highlight what we do, but what others that support us do too. The Ceres seasoned rice flour is the perfect pre-dust for frying. For years, we've been making this on a small batch basis, but due to popular demand, we're now making it available to everyone. The Ceres seasoned rice flour has no artificial flavours or artificial colourings, individually packed for freshness and less wastage too. Naturally allergen-free and made in an allergen-free site. I bet you didn't know that having the seasoning inside your pre-dust maximises your batter performance and can also increase the life of your oil. What I love about the Ceres seasoned rice flour is that we use a real tight grade of heat-treated milled rice flour and a special grade of salt. And when you blend the two together, you get a fully homogenized product that boosts your consistency by a huge amount. Get your seasoned rice flour today at worldofceres.com/shop. Today's episode guest is Anthony Bennett, head of food of the Loungers Group, which also has a sister company, the Cozy Club. I've known Anthony now for a few years. I met Anthony when he was working back at Latasca. As you will hear in this episode, Anthony was instrumental with streamlining the logistics of food, but also making the menu more inclusive to more guests. One of them roles is hard enough, but doing both when the business is growing at a rate of 20 to 25 sites a year is hugely ambitious. As you will hear, Anthony is now moving on to a new role, so I hope you join me in wishing him the best of luck in his new role. I hope you enjoy this episode. Anthony, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Hi, how you doing?
Not bad, man. Not bad. You're a very busy boy. You actually, I'm not even going to say that you're always a very busy boy. You know, we've known each other for a few years, and you managing your diary has just been pitiful.
Yeah, I must admit it's not one of my strong points.
I think we did plan to do this podcast. Probably, I'd go as far as saying pre-COVID. I'd go as far as that. I'd say
Probably, yeah. Pre-dinosaur age. I would have thought it was a long time ago.
But actually, so much has happened in the last couple of years, and we're going to talk about it. A lot's happening with you in the last 3 months as well. So actually, there's probably a lot more to talk about now anyway, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it's the right time. Yeah, it'd be really good.
So one thing that's always intrigued me a little bit is that you are, is it executive development chef, or is it just development chef or head of food? What's your role at the moment at Loungers?
Oh gosh, it's kind of evolved actually. So I joined Loungers 6 years ago as head of food, and it was a new role for the business when I joined, and it was all about coming in, taking control of the supply chain, mentoring the area chefs or senior chefs at the time, and then grabbing hold of the Cozy Club and the lounge menus and really developing those menus and improving the offers. And, just going for it. So it was such a great opportunity. So that role when I joined was head of food. And it's pretty much stayed that across the 6 years. But as the years have gone by, people have come into the business and helped in different areas. So we've had some help within the supply chain. A good friend of mine, Tony Brammer, came along a couple of years in and helped me pick up the supply chain in terms of some of those deliveries to the back door. So we used to have H&B, Harvey and Brocklis. They would come in direct to the business. So the chefs would have to place their orders from H&B for their cheese and for their pestos and marinades and some of the bespoke sauces. That was really good. But obviously that was at the time when lounges were growing. So they'd been to 80, 90 sites then. It was just a lot for the chefs to deal with. There was actually six deliveries to the back door, as I call them. So six trucks turning up to a lounge or a cozy club up to 6 days a week. It was quite a lot to manage. So yeah, as the time's gone by, I've brought people in to help me, evolve the systems and processes, and working with the executive board to make it a much easier place to work for our chefs ultimately, and our general managers, and the entire lounge and cozy club team. So yes, it's still kind of heading up the food, but over the past couple of years, it's gone for me very much into the development cycle. So all about the 100% of my time on the food offer, in cozy club and lounge, more recently lounge.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about lounges is that, and it was weird because when I first come across lounges, you don't actually realize that they exist in some ways, because there's so many of them, but they're all sort of independent looking to some degree, and they've got different names. So you got the Arco Lounge or something else lounge and so on. And once you know they exist, it's like, that's it now. They're everywhere. Like, and they are literally everywhere. They're in most major towns now, aren't they? They've grown massively, like significantly, haven't they?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the business model is amazing, and the senior leadership team and everyone who works there is just a really really cool bunch of people to work with, and everyone's kind of on the same journey together, and it's a real family kind of environment to work in. Each GM and each head chef have their own accountability, and they're running those businesses like they are their own. Obviously we give them the systems and tools and the menus and all the information to run a really good business, but ultimately we're asking them to step up and do their thing and keep it local, and that's really what the lounges are about. So they are in towns, neighborhoods. They're not necessarily in the main high streets, and I think that's always been the success of lounges, and that's what really excites me about joining them. 6 years ago this week, I think it is. So yes, it's an incredible place to work, and the business model is really solid.
I do think it is. And I've been looking at it from the outside, and a little bit of, obviously the little bit of interaction I have supplying them through you. But I think it's the non-obviousness of the business model. Like you say, they are in non-prominent sites. I've eaten there with my family and friends. I go to the Stroud one when I'm in Stroud. I go to the one in Bristol when I'm in Bristol. There's one that's just opened in the next town, Nuneaton, which I haven't been to yet. But there's just something quite, I don't know, like there's something really quite chilled about the place. Like of all of them that I've been to, they're just very relaxed. And one thing that I've always liked about it is that you can customize the menu, like as in from a diner's point of view. You can add a bit of this and take off a bit of that, and no one ever it's never a problem. They just do it. And I know that might be the bane of their life, but but from a consumer point of view, nothing's ever a problem, I found.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing when you've got an all-day menu. We're serving brunch, or you can have a lounge breakfast at 9 a.m. in the morning and 9 p.m. at night. So you have to, when you've got a broad menu like that, you have to be able to offer some customization. We'd love to take it, as far as we could, but I think we try to limit it where we can, just to make sure that the teams can kind of cope. When you've got a menu 70 dishes deep, you need to make sure that there isn't, and everything's customizable, but particularly on the brunch section. So if you went in today and you wanted a lounge breakfast, but you wanted poached egg instead of scrambled, or you like vegan mushrooms, for example. What I mean by that is without butter. We'll do it with vegan spread and salt and pepper. And I don't know, if you'd like 4 hash browns or 2 tomatoes, that kind of thing goes on. Or swap out a gluten-free bread for a normal slice of bread. That's really simple, and the process works, and we have the systems in place. With our burger section, we've tried to really work hard on that to make sure that the offer has enough breadth to it, so there's plenty of choice, and each burger's well put together in terms of stack. the flavor profiles, the textures. So actually, that hopefully entices our customers not to change it up too much. But again, if someone wants a double patty or to add chicken in there, or take out the mayonnaise and have double cheese or whatever it might be, we've captured that within the menu as well. So yeah, we'll always do that, and I think that is what that's another one of the reasons why people like coming to Lounge, because it's not absolutely set in stone, and it works really well.
I think what happens when you've got all of that is that it does feel like, although it's a group, it does feel that each one in that local area is that local area's one. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and again, I go back to the GMs and the head chefs and all of the teams at local level. They are just really good at managing their community, or being in their community, should I say? And we have a community team. We support our teams with local training, with reaching out to their local community. They do lots of charity events, and they're speaking locally to other local businesses. And I think that is what brings that community piece together, and it makes it feel like when you go into a lounge as a customer that this is, one of a kind. And we get that. We get customers to this day coming in going, can't believe that you are a big group. We don't really see ourselves as a chain. We don't put ourselves in the casual dining sector as a casual dining chain. We are a group of businesses that operate within local neighborhoods and towns and market towns, and it's what makes us a bit different, I guess, from many other businesses. But ultimately, we're just a really easygoing place to come in, have something to eat. We want customers to dwell, to sit back. If they're coming in for brunch, open the newspaper. Take your time at the table. There's no turn these tables around. We don't have that philosophy. There's lots of engagement with the customers. Bring your dog. That's always been the way. It's a really cool place to work, and I've certainly loved it for the past 6 years. It's been incredibly challenging, but incredibly rewarding from that perspective.
So I met you when you was at Latasca. You was sort of coming to your last 6 months or 7 months, something like that. And obviously that was very, but isn't obvious to many, but for those listening, it was focused around Spanish food, or at least Spanish influenced food as well. And you was really good at that. Like, you knew exactly what the goal was. What your focus was, very Spanish. I remember I'd be developing something. You was like, "That's not very Spanish," and I was like, "Okay, well, you know." Um, so, would you say, what's the menu like at lounges, and what have the challenges been there?
Yeah, we're just talking about Latasca. I mean, that was amazing for me. That was an opportunity to jump onto a brand that needed some help in terms of business turnaround. In its heyday, it was absolutely banging. It was a heartland of Manchester, a really good team that originally set that business up, and then I came in and worked with Simon Wilkinson and James Picton, David Pepper, the leadership team there, to help turn the business around and make it really Spanish again, because it kind of lost its way. So for me, working on that brand as a food developer and going out to Spain lots and lots and seeking out special suppliers within all the different regions of Spain and working with them independently to bring those products over was just like a food developer's dream. So it was difficult, but it was almost quite easy to kind of work on one cuisine, because you can research it. I went out to Arthac and worked with Juan Marie Arthac, and when it had, well, it still has 3 Michelin stars, and that was just amazing to spend a week there. So I had lots of amazing opportunities to really delve deep into that cuisine and really understand it. As I say, it's difficult, but on the other hand, it's quite easy because you can just home in on it. With lounges, or with the lounge, if we just take the lounge menu on its own, it's kind of everyman food. It has to appeal to everybody.
Yeah,
We need to make sure that it's a broad menu, that the quality is there. So going back to the people that walk in and think that it's an independent, cafe bar, it needs to have that feel. So the food needs to be very fresh, presented really well with lots of color and height and texture where we can. So taking all of those elements, but making that scalable, across 140 plus sites and growing at the rate of 20 lounges a year and 5 cozy clubs a year. That's the run rate that we're back up to in terms of openings. So it's the menu has to be broad. That's probably the best scenario, or the best way I can kind of lean into that. Really, I think it has to have gluten free. It has to have lots of vegan options, and those are the two areas that I've really pushed in the 6 years that I've been there. And a good friend of mine, Alex Marsh, before me, really set the stall out on the vegan and gluten-free menus, and we've continued to evolve those over the years as well. So yeah, broad is the best way of
How
describing it.
how have you managed to keep the menu broad, but also keep on top of, let's say, stock levels and how much stock you are having and holding?
Yes, great question. We've done a load of work over the past 3 years, I would say. I mean, it's always been part of the plan, and it was part of the plan when I joined. But over the past 3 years, up until now, and beyond, it's been about taking ingredients and using that ingredient in 2 to 3 or 4 different ways across the menu, and not just placing it in 2 or 3 different parts of the menu, because that's the easy part, but actually taking that ingredient and then using it as a base to mix into 2 or 3 other things to then create another ingredient that completely reads different on the menu and actually has a different texture, flavor profile, and taste. So I don't know, I can give you an example. We have a shakshuka on the lounge menu, which is our sort of North African baked eggs dish for breakfast. We have a tomato pepper sauce, so that's what we call shakshuka in the kitchen. So that's made and ready to go in a 300-gram portion, ready to go. So then we'll then take that and we'll add that to a beef brisket, for example. So we'll take a 1 kilo piece of beef brisket, salt, pepper, olive oil into the pan, sear that off, put some veal jus over the top, double foil into the oven for 4 hours, then pull it. Then I'll grab that shakshuka, fold that through the beef brisket, then add in some Mexican black beans, plenty of seasoning, some sumac, salt, pepper, and all of a sudden we've got a really interesting beef brisket chili. But actually, I've taken what was a brunch dish and folded it through meat and added other ingredients to then make a main course chili. And that's one example, and that's the kind of way I operate, and lots of other food developers do in the UK and in the industry. And there's some really good people doing similar stuff. But for lounge in particular, and cozy club, we've done the same thing. It's all about using those ingredients to make sure that you've got them really running across the menu and working really hard for you.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. And I think, and I think usually, so obviously my main background is from the fish and chip industry. That's no secret. And when I see vegan options implemented, they're a bit, they're still a bit crude. Let's say they're not there yet. And whereas when you've got a broader menu, like with what you guys have at lounges, it's so much. I don't want to use the word easy, but I guess with skill that you guys have, it is easier somewhat to create that inclusivity, isn't it?
Yeah, the skill level is really interesting actually. So we do buy some ingredients that help us,
Mm.
So we will buy things like a chipotle chili sticky jam, for example. I'm not going to ask the teams to make that. Whilst it's quite easy to do it, it's quite technical. And actually, in terms of the space in the kitchen, we've got to make sure the balance is right for the teams, because they've got to come in, open up, get prepped up, ready, get all their sections ready. And there is an element of lots of prep within the business, and that will always stay the same. But yeah, you need to make sure that we're not overdoing it, and that we're working towards the skill set that we've got. Within the lounge and the cozy club business, we are very fortunate to be a business of our size that continues to employ chefs, and we're doing our very best to make sure we keep hold of them as well in a climate where it's difficult to keep people, when hospitality's had such a hit over the most recent times that we all sort of know about. So yeah, skill set's really important, and making sure that we keep that balance in place.
Yeah, no, definitely. What would you say? You've been 6 years. at lounges with very high growth, and the quality couldn't slip because that's just unacceptable. Consistency, again, can't slip because that's unacceptable. What do you think your biggest challenges were or have been?
Um, God, I could write a book about the past 6 years at lounges. It's been an amazing roller coaster. Um, so many challenges. I mean, the supply chain. The supply chain is a really interesting piece. When I joined, we used a business called Elite Food Service, and we still do actually, and they're very good. When I joined, I came from a business where we had central distribution. So you've got you'd as a chef, you'd order on Monday and you'd get it on Wednesday, which gives the distribution hub time to pick the order, pack it, ship it to wherever it needs to be to a smaller depot, and then dropped in on the Wednesday, for example. And that's a model that happens across the UK, in particularly in the casual dining sector. With lounges, when I joined, and it's still the same today, Elite Food Service will deliver 6 days a week, and the chef can order at 4 o'clock on a Monday, and it will be with you on the Tuesday. So that has always brought its challenge, particularly over the past few years, where I've introduced lots and lots of new, as we call them, third-party suppliers, and you're one of them, Stel. With the amazing. There you go. There's a little promotion for you. The amazing fish batter. No, it's wicked. It's a really good product. And since we introduced the gluten-free batter, we were able to put fish and chips on the Cozy Club menu in a gluten-free option, which is just amazing. But going back to what I'm trying to get to, probably one of the most biggest challenges has been the supply chain, to continue to develop products, to bring in lots of third parties, manage those within the background, get those into Elite, and then get that product into the sites the next day. And I'm talking 35 different third-party suppliers that I've introduced over the past 6 years. And some, more than that, probably some have come and gone. Some people or some suppliers just haven't cut the mustard for whatever reason. But that has been a really big challenge. But equally, the reward has been that we've got these really interesting ingredients that I've either developed or found. I mean, one of the most interesting ones is you were talking about vegan food a minute ago. Going on the October menu in Lounge in all sites is vegan sausage that I've actually created myself with the help of the guys over at British Premium Sausage. So we collaborated on it over a year ago, and we've ended up with our own product, which is gluten-free and vegan, and it's very good. I'm very pleased with it. I've been over to Milton Keynes and worked with the guys on the machinery to make sure that we've got the right casing and we've got the right product going in, and that we've got the right amount of coconut to fats and seasoning blends, and that we're using the seaweed skins. It's really, really incredible, really interesting, and that's kind of takes me back to my days of developing food and for the supermarkets, for the major multiples, and that level of detail on product development has been really key for loungers in my role here, as well as knocking out nice dishes that our customers like. It's all about the detail and the individual ingredients as well, and products.
Well, I guess one thing that comes to mind when when you discuss that and the supply chain is that one thing maybe some consumers get bored of with, um, let's say a large pub group, is that that it all tastes the same. But as it grew, everything just became maybe too consistent, and But you seem to be, there's a lot of focus on the fact that you have gone to the drawing board for the vegan sausage. Let's say you've created it from scratch for loungers, for Cozy Club, and it is just for that company. And so as you have grown, you haven't become boring and stale. You've carried on investing in that product development.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to keep going on about my sausage, but I am very proud of it. We get customers. We get customers. It's only it's only in sorry, that's stupid. It's only in 7 sites, and the customers that have gone in and tried it, we're getting 1 or 2 people saying, "Where can I buy it?" And it's like, well, actually, you can't, because at the moment you can't, because it's a product for loungers. It's our own thing, and they're like, wow, it's not something that you've nipped round Sainsbury's and got, for example. So yeah, I think that for me has always been my drive and my real passion, that the product side of things. And that you talk about generic foods or menus that taste kind of very similar. And that depends on the supply chain as well and what's available to you. So if I go back to what I was talking about just very previously, in terms of elite food service, when I did join Loungers, it was the products were what they had in their range. So the guys at Loungers back then would have said, we need I don't know, a chipotle chili jam or a hummus or whatever. Can you provide us one? Whereas when I came in, we kind of ripped that up, and that was part and parcel what the leadership team wanted me to do when I joined. It's like, right, you do what you need to do. If you need to change the supply chain model, then change it. And I felt that that's what we needed to do to make sure that we weren't generic and we weren't using the same product that many other groups were using. And then it's that layers of flavors, that seasoning, that process involved in, if you are going to take a product that's kind of off the shelf per se, you damn well cook it properly, or you use it in its best form. And if that means you have to use it as an ingredient and it has to be embellished with something else, then that's what you need to do. So yeah, there's lots of detail and lots of focus and obsession over making that work.
One thing that I read just this morning while I was reading a bit about you, trying to figure out things that I don't know. And it was that when you got to Latasca, your job there was one of your main jobs was to turn the menu from 80% frozen and bought in to fresh, essentially, or freshly cooked or freshly finished, with better ingredients. So you've been there before, although the difference is here with Loungers, you weren't walking into something that was probably in disrepair. You were just walking into a very fast growing business, which is very different in itself too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Absolutely, respectfully, when I joined, they didn't have an executive chef for 7 or 8 months, and I met a really nice guy, Ray Brown, who was holding the fort when I joined, and he was working with Alex Marsh, who used to work at Loungers. He's a really good friend of mine. And those two were doing their very best to do the development and manage the process for the 7 months waiting for me to join. It was just that's how long these things take sometimes. It felt like eternity as I was leaving Latasca, and I will jump back to Latasca in a moment. But yeah, I think you always need to have respect and understand where businesses are before you start tearing it up or repairing it or whatever. I've been, I guess, lucky really with Loungers because it was absolutely in a really good place. It was growing, it had really good backing. It was backed at the time by Piper Equity, and they were 100% behind everything that the directors were doing. And then I came into a business that was already in a really good place. What it actually needed was a lot of fine tuning and a lot of focus on product development, but nothing else. The sites were opening themselves. There was a team in place to open the sites. The senior chefs, the ops managers were all working really hard to make sure that part of the business happened. So that just carried on. And then I came in to help evolve the food, and that's what I've done. With Latasca, it's a really good point. I was around with Latasca for about 7-8 months when I was at Bay Restaurant Group. I jumped on to the brand, and I didn't really do a lot, if I'm honest, over that time, because it was going through a transition, and it was going to be demerged, and that's what happened. So as soon as it was demerged from Bay Restaurant Group, and it became its own business, and Simon Wilkinson came in with the leadership team that he put in place, they then asked me to join them as head of food and turn it around. So what you're talking about, the frozen element of where it was before to making it fresh, that was really exciting, and that was why I wanted to do that and stay on that journey, or start that journey with them, should I say, because the previous 8 months or so it was kind of not a lot was going on. And it was really refreshing and interesting because it was just like, here you go. This is it, Anthony. We need to change it. You go and do what you need to do. If you need to go to Spain, go to Spain. Whatever you need, just make it happen. And as a food developer, it was just like, oh, amazing. I can go to I can go to Spain now straight away without question. I can go and seek out the best pimenton de la Vera in Extremadura, and I can go and see it being made and make sure that I'm really happy that that tiny little bit of seasoning is going to make the difference, for example, on patatas bravas. And actually, I want to create our own patatas bravas recipe rather than using a frozen product that was in play before, for example. So we did that transition. That's just one example. What we did do very quickly was move the supply chain into Fresh Direct, and what that enabled us to do is have everything under one roof. So I could have all of those fresh ingredients on tap. You know, there was the fresh kitchen element there. So if we needed something made, like char grilled, it sounds really silly, but it's not, char grilled greens, for example, put through an impinger so we get that lovely char flavor. Actually get those guys to do that. It's still fresh. It's completely fresh. It's our product, our recipe, comes into the supply chain and into the kitchens, and then get the chefs making aiolis, making some desserts, making some dips, dressings, all of those things that the customers are really going to thank you for. And then get that consistency on the outside by, you know, fresh vegetables being char grilled, for example, and brought in, and then used on the menu in salads or in the paellas, and then improving, you know, everything from the all of the seafood to using the best bomba rice for paella. All of that was just, you know, I could go on and on and on. It was unbelievable. Developing our own chorizo in Salamanca and then bringing that over, then finding the best jamon iberico at the price point that we could have, and going out and having a look round the 15-acre fields with the black hoof pigs, picking out the acorns. You know, it was just a dream come true, and I really, really loved that job. But I always knew that it was a start and end to it, because ultimately it was about keeping Latasca, grabbing hold of Latasca and ensuring that it ends up being a really viable business at the end of it. I mean, unfortunately, there were some casualties in terms of site closures. That was out of my control. But when I finished my time there, it was in a really good place. And I was really proud of what I achieved in terms of the food offer. And then it went off to casual dining group, and after that, you know, I was long gone to lounges anyway. So
Yeah.
I always knew it was a 5-year process, and I was really pleased with what I did. It's a
No,
great
I
time.
guess you did your bit, and that's all you can do,
Yeah,
isn't it? At the end of the day.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I guess like, you know, it's interesting the turnaround that, and you hit the nail on the head actually. That, you know, you tried to get the best ingredient for the price point, because again, with casual dining, you can't be over the top, you can't be too expensive. You might want to serve the best iberico ham, but you just can't. You've got to be realistic. So you've got to find the best you can for the price point that is available. That's it.
Yeah, I think sometimes suppliers probably bang their head against the wall when they're talking to me. But one thing that never, in everything that I do, even in my personal life, and you know, I coach a young football team, and I love doing that as well, voluntary. But everything the way I am, it's just like that will do is something that doesn't ever come out of my mouth, or I never
Mm,
think that way. And it annoys me at myself at times, because you know, you could see a perfectly good ham on Iberico and go, well, that'll do, that's fine. But actually, hang on, I don't know about the other 6 or 7 or 10 products that are available. I need to see them first. I need to understand what they look like, what they feel like, what the yield is, what the cost is, how they're made, what's the background of the, you know, what's the welfare of the animal, who are the people that are making it, are they really nice people, have they got good values, you know, my head spins at times, but I think that's just, I can't change that. That's just how
mm,
I am, and I want to make sure that once we finally come to that decision, I can really say yes, it is absolutely the best product at that price, because we've done the work, we've gone through that process, and we are proud to say this is the right one for us for all of the right reasons.
yeah.
It takes time, but you know, it's for the love of food.
Yeah. No, exactly. No, exactly that. No, it makes complete sense. So you are leaving Loungers soon. and
Yes.
and hence why in our speak there's been a bit of, you know, we've been using
Past tense.
past tense, current tense, present tense. It's purely because we didn't get to the point yet, is that you're leaving, and so it's been 6 years at Loungers, and you're moving to Punch Group,
Yes.
Punch Pub Group.
Yeah.
What sort of, so tell us a little bit about what do you have to do. Give us a little bit of insight into the transition. How long have you been planning this, the official transition, and what sort of things is it that you actually have to do to sort of, give some groundwork for the people that are around you at the moment?
Yeah. So I started talking to the guys at Punch beginning of this year. It's been a really lovely process. And I knew that at some point I would like to leave Loungers, and the directors here at Loungers are, on board with it as well. And they get that from a creative point of view. Cozy Club is in a really good place. We've actually got a team in place there now, whereas I used to do the menu for them full time. I've actually been able to step back from that over the past recent year or so, and that we have a food development manager and an assistant in there, and they're doing a sterling job, really good. So it's been enabled me to do much more focus on the Lounge brand, which is the mothership of the business. But ultimately, I had the conversation with the directors, and as a developer, as someone who's really creative and loves food and challenge, it just felt, 6 years is a really good time for me to kind of move on. I wasn't looking for anything. I've been approached over the years. I'm a pretty humble guy. I think most people would say that. So it's not something I want to be, shouting about and being egotistical. But the work that's gone on in Loungers with my involvement, and people around me have helped me, of course. You just naturally, people have phoned up and said, "Come and work for us, and can you do what you've done at Loungers for us?" And that's really nice, but that's just not me. I'm not just going to jump ship for whatever reason. It had to be the right time and the right group of people and the right philosophy and the right challenge for me to then kind of move on. So I started talking to the guys at Punch earlier this year, and they said to me, "Look, we're going through a big transition. We've got a load of tenanted pubs that we want to convert back into managed. We've got a really good team. We've got a development kitchen, a really good space to work. The processes are in place. But actually, what we want to do is look at that strategy, look at how we can convert those businesses into really good food-led pubs. So having 3 or 4 different menus." And then driving the business forwards in terms of food quality, and bringing in that kind of essence of what I've done at Loungers from the food perspective, not necessarily the menu, but from the the detail that goes on. And so that felt to me like actually what they would like me to do is something that I really enjoy doing. And it's not about going somewhere where it's safe and easy. It's actually about going somewhere where you can make a real difference. And it's going to give me a huge challenge because it's a new world. It's pubs, and at a time when pubs have been hit through, the coronavirus pandemic, this is still a different challenge and a different opportunity. So for me, it was just the right one. It just felt right that I can go there, help an already good team that are in place, move on to the next level, really get obsessive about our food, and change the dial. So yeah, really looking forward to it. In terms of Loungers, yeah, I mean, when I originally joined, I did a lot. I don't think I slept for the first 3 years. It was just bonkers. But over the years, we've gradually brought people in. So we have a buyer now, really nice guy called Ben. He's really good at his job. We've got the food development manager in Cozy Club, Kane, who used to work for me. He was a food development assistant, so I've seen him go over into that brand and then really flourish. And it's just wonderful to see him develop and the business evolve. And then within the Lounge team, we are recruiting a couple of people to take on what I've been doing more recently. So there'll be an executive development chef full-time and a food development manager full-time. And they'll pick up the 2 parts of the Lounge that I've been dealing with more recently, and they'll evolve it from there. So I leave them in a really good place. So that was key to me as well, because Lounges has been a massive part of my life for the past 6 years. So I want to make sure that I'm good, that they're good, and they're ready for the next stage of their future and growth. So yeah, I think it's all good.
Mm. And what's the sort of menu like within the Punch group at the moment? Or is it all very fragmented and different because of all the different sort of setups?
Yeah, I mean, we're not looking at the tenanted business, because I'm not going to be working on that at the moment. The focus is all about the managed side. So there are three menus in place at the moment, and the team have done a great job pulling those together. And there's, as I say, there's been an existing team there. Some of them have been there for a long time. So I'm really looking forward to joining and helping them, move along on the next stage. So yeah, there's kind of an entry level menu, a mid tier menu, and then more of a gastro menu. So that feels really good to be able to have those offers. And then what we are going to do when I join is slot a fourth one in. So that will be quite interesting, and that will go in between. We'll push the gastro style one up a bit higher, and then we'll bring in a more of a premium one in between the mid tier and the gastro. Um, and we may change the name. I don't know if it's gastro at the moment. It's they're kind of waiting for me to join so we can sort of work that strategy out. But ultimately, the way I see it, there'll be four menus that are run centrally, and each one of those menus has great value, great quality, great choice. The chefs will be happy to cook it, and we'll make sure the chefs have got everything they need to deliver the menu, and then ultimately the customers are going into the pubs and coming out going, wow, that was really good. I remember that meal. I want to come back. And that goes back to one of your previous points, about generic food. I'm absolutely not saying that it's like that at Punch at all, because the guys are doing a great job, but we would never want it to be like that because of cost, for example. So there's a lot of work ahead of me to do, and I know it's going to be a big old challenge, but bring it on.
Yeah, well, that's what it's about, isn't it? So you've come into the head of food sort of position in a somewhat unorthodox way, um, because you didn't see in menu development. A lot of people sort of come from a chefing background. They've done 10, 20 years in chefing and think, oh, I'm going to take a different direction here. Whereas you pretty much started in this role and stayed there. You sort of did your classical training, did a couple of chefing jobs, and actually just went early on straight into menu development. What was the thought process behind that at the time?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. I was very fortunate enough to get my first development role in, God, I'm going to sound old now. I think I am getting old. I think it was January 1999. So yeah, just going back from that a little bit, I kind of finished college, and then I had a couple of years out and about trying different things. I didn't go to London. So I finished college, did my classical training, did my BTEC diploma in hotel management, my NVQs in food and all of that stuff. And a lot of the people that I was with on the course went off to London. They went off and went to Cafe Royal or wherever. And it was really good to see those guys go. But actually, I was in love with my childhood sweetheart, who I'm still with now to this day. And I just didn't want to go. I was just like, oh, I just want to stay home. I don't want to go and do that with everyone else, for the reasons of just not wanting to leave my girlfriend at the time. So really, really silly reason, but it all adds up now. And yeah, so I did a bit of work in the NHS. So I went into hospital straight away to see how hospital food was kind of put together. I kind of did that for a bit. Wasn't quite right for me. My mum had a coffee shop, so I went and worked for her for about a year. That was really good to see how an independent business worked. It was a really busy one in the city centre in Southampton. And then from there, I kind of went into more of a brand. Well, I went into a branded arena. So I went to work as a head chef for what was City Centre Restaurants, which is TRG now. And it was a deep pan pizza, and it converted into a brand called Papa Gusto's. So I had the first one in Southampton, and then this was an Italian casual dining chain that they tried. I think they rolled out 5 or 6 and then converted them back. It didn't quite work, but it was really busy where I was. I loved it, got obsessed by it, working all the hours to make sure this kitchen was spotless and the food was bang on. And that was when I first learned about specs, about specifications, about weights, measures, and how things have to be exact on the plate for you to deliver profit in a group wide sort of scenario. They asked me to open up a couple of sites, so I went to Bracknell, Bristol. That was really exciting. So I wasn't even 20, and I was opening up sites and involved in businesses turning over 30-40 grand a week back then. It was incredible. And then I was just like thinking, actually, what do I want to do next? Do I want to continue this way? Should I go to London with my friends? Do I need to explore that fine dining? That's a gap that really I haven't really done yet. Is it something that I need? Should I do it? You question yourself at such a young age. And actually, I was just looking through the local newspaper, and there was a position available for development junior development chef in the New Forest factory that just got some funding, 15 million funding to develop pizzas. And at the time, they were doing chilled pizzas into Quick Save. I don't know if you remember Quick Save, but that was a
Yeah,
very old
blimey.
budget
That's a
supermarket.
blast from the past,
Um,
isn't it?
yeah, so I must have been 21 or something. And they said, look, actually, you've got this, you're young, you've got the experience of working for this sort of Italian brand and deep pan pizza, so you get it. Take some of that knowledge, and you can come here and help us develop these pizzas. And fast track 5 years, it was an amazing time. I went from junior development through to new product development manager. We launched products into Asda, Sainsbury's, Taste the Difference in Sainsbury's, Asda frozen, Summerfield chilled, did all of their range. So chilled and frozen pizzas in the major multiples. And I learned that was a fast track for me. I really learned about processes, about behaviors, about walking into what was Stamford Street, then HQ at Sainsbury's, and going into a meeting and cooking up products that I'm about to present for Sainsbury's own label in the Taste the Difference category. And you've really got to know your stuff. You're challenged. You got to know every ingredient that's in there, how you made it, where the research is, what's driven you to present this product to them, where it would sit in the category management, pricing. It was just an amazing time for me, and I think I learned probably 70% of everything I know now in terms of food development in those 5 years. It was just incredible. So yeah, I don't have that classic background of working at high volume hotels or resorts or working in Michelin star restaurants or rosettes and leading teams. To be absolutely honest, I never experienced that for longevity. It's been dips and dabs for me, but there you go.
I
Everyone's career
guess
is a bit different.
in some ways, without just by chance, you were early to the game. You got into the scene quite early, and no one could have known all those years ago that casual dining and was going to be such a big thing, and that menu development would be as important as it is. I think maybe 20 odd years ago, maybe 30 years ago, Wimpy and all of that lot was still big in people's minds, and that was actually what people had in terms of in their mind as a turnkey operation. And I think if anything, that's probably what I've been alluding to some degree, that with all this menu development, all this creativity, when a lot of other companies grew, it was back in the day, it was with that in mind. It was with the Wimpy model or the Little Chef model, and it was just everything came in a packet. It was pretty boring, and it was just marketed well to some degree. But then they ended, and now we've got similar size groups, well, a lot bigger than your Wimpys, like, which actually do have a lot of menu development that are at the core of it.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think that for me, when I was at Express Products, it was all about creating food for the consumer. So it was all about what does the consumer want. So I remember we did rising dough pizza. We were the first to the market with it, um, and it was amazing. So this Taste the Difference pizza, it was in a CPET tray, frozen. The instruction was actually turn the oven on, put the pizza in, and as the oven starts to rise, the pizza uh, starts to defrost and prove, and then you end up 30 minutes later with a restaurant quality pizza. And that was what it was about. It was about restaurant quality. So it's always kind of been there in my career, always going back to restaurants. So even if it was creative food development for the groups that I've worked for in terms of the retail sector, it's always been looking at restaurants. What are restaurants doing? What's happening in America? What's happening in France? What's happening in Belgium? What's happening in Copenhagen? Whatever. Always looking at that and doing the research. And back then, it was part and parcel of the food development role. You would travel around. So when I left Express Products, I went to work for Geest, who are now Bakkavor, and I went into Katie's Kitchen in London and looked after Sainsbury's. So I went from a pizza bread manufacturer, so to speak, to an even bigger one, and I was looking after £30 million worth of pizza just in Sainsbury's alone, doing all of the chilled own label products for Sainsbury's. We launched Pizza Express, which you'll see now still to this day, I believe, the chilled pizza. So there was that link with Pizza Express then, so back to restaurants again. So it always felt to me that, hang on a minute, I'm developing food, but actually I'm still looking at restaurants. I've still got my toe dipped in the water. I'm still involved in that neck of the woods, and that's where my inspiration has always come from. So I spent a couple of years at Bakkavor, at KT's, at Geest. It was brilliant. I learned a hell of a lot there in terms of fast moving. We'd launch a product in 6 weeks from concept to launch into 500 stores. It was just unreal. The pace of it was really good. And that helped me, I think, evolve and get ready to come back into the restaurant sector where the pace is even faster. You kind of you cherry pick these little nuggets that happen on your journey in your career, and you kind of look back to them and go, yeah, that's where I got that from. You don't necessarily know when you're doing it. You've got to look back to check it out. And I picked up so many hints and tips and methods and ways of working and just behaviors from my time in the retail sector, which was quite a long time, actually.
I suppose you can only connect the dots looking backwards, can't you?
Definitely. Yeah, 100%.
So you like to, you're a big team player. You like to build up teams around you. And you always struck me as somebody that is always training his replacement, your replacement, that is. Like, even when you're working, you had no intentions of going anywhere. You're always training the next lot of people. Do you see that as really important, as almost doing yourself out of a job to some degree?
Yeah, definitely. I love coaching and training people, and the people element of what I do is really important because you just can't do it, can you? Right? Without people around you, and the right people as well. So, and I can look at what I've been doing with my little football team that I coach. When my youngest son Stanley was 4, took him to a football thing, and they said, "Oh, we need someone to be the manager." I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it." And I love football anyway, but I'd never coached before. But now we're 10 years on, and I've got 6 people in that team with me who are now under 15 that have been with me, including my son, for that 10-year journey. And it's lovely. There's loyalty involved. There's friendship. There's so many more things for them to learn over that time than just playing football. So that is just the way I am, and I love working with people. I love collaborations. I'm certainly not the guy that will walk into somewhere and go like, "This is how we do it, and that's it." Just follow this and get on with it. And I think that's just who I am as a person. And it might be because I have not been like a lot of top chefs running big brigades and got the stripes. I've actually had to do it a harder way, and I had to learn and be collaborative all the way through my career, and that stays with me now. So even when we develop the lounge menu, it's a collaboration. I'm leading, absolutely, but I'm also asking the chefs in the trial chef sites, what do you think? How's the, we go back to the sausage, but how's the sausage working? Should we grill it, or do you reckon we should put it in the pan? And how much oil does it need? And how long does it take? Is it three? I think it's 3.5, 4 minutes. But what do you reckon on busy service? And that is the way that I've always done things, the complete collaboration. So as I leave lounges now, I think because of that way of working, they are well equipped. There's plenty of people now that are ready to carry it on, and I just hope that they're all up for it, which they are.
Yeah. So one thing that I've always sort of got as a memory of you, because it's been a while since I've seen you properly. But remember when we were testing the gluten-free batter back then, and we actually did it in
Yeah.
your garden. It was a nice summer's day. I couldn't believe it. I walked through your house and I was thinking, no, we're not going to fry in here, surely not. And then we walked to the garden, and on the decking there was a table with fryers outside, and there's no need for extraction because we were outside. And it stuck in my mind how the neighbours must have thought to themselves, bloody hell, like they're actually cooking fried food on the deck. It wasn't a barbecue. But now you've got, a nice development kitchen at the bottom of your garden, and that shows me a lot of dedication to what you do. So, so where does that sort of dedication come from? What motivates you? What gives you that kick up, that fire, or that kick up the bum? What is it? Is it just inside you, or is it just something that you got taught from someone else that you work with?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I guess, like I said earlier on, like, that'll do is just something that doesn't go through my brain. So actually, if I can make my life easier in terms of having the facilities around me or the right people around me, and everyone, and the end result is what am I doing and who is going to benefit from it? So I, the benefit of me having a development kitchen at home, it benefits everyone. It benefits my family because in a national role, when I live on the south coast, um, I might not necessarily need to go all the way up to the Midlands to check a product or have a meeting with the supplier or test a recipe that's in one of the trial sites, and the closest one is actually the Midlands. So I could do that from here, video it, and then send it out to the teams, and be comfortable that I'm absolutely, what I'm sending is factual and correct, and that's just the way I am. It goes back to, I keep saying it, that'll do. I just can't do that. I won't be able to sleep at night. So I guess there's that kind of part of my brain that just wants things to be as best and perfect as they can. But the benefit to other people, as well as me benefiting from just walking down the bottom of the garden and cooking something up, is really good. But the benefit is just like it's always someone else who's going to benefit from that, and from that I get a lot of satisfaction. My family are going to be happier because I'm going to be around more. The businesses, whoever I work for, are going to benefit because a quick turnaround of a recipe, of a training video, a project, or whatever it might be. So yeah, there was method in the madness as we built this over the past couple of years. Some people were putting up garden bars or snooker rooms at the bottom of their garden, and I got a bit of a mini industrial kitchen in here. As I look round in it now, chatting
So,
to you.
so one thing that I'd like to sort of finish on is we've touched on how sort of motivated you are. So when COVID came, and no doubt you was put on furlough like many others, how did that challenge you? Like, because if you're motivated every day to go do something, and you've got those restaurants to sort of keep churning out with product or ideas and creativity, but then COVID comes, and I think for a lot of creative people or very self-motivated people, it did throw a spanner in the works somewhat. So how did that play out for you?
Yeah, it was tough, wasn't it? Because I just kind of finished building the development kitchen. I didn't do it through COVID. It was before COVID even was here that it was on the go. But there was loads of snags, like anything, and particularly when it's your own building at home or your own decorating. You always say, I'll get round to that later. I'll finish that bit later. So the good thing is, when COVID came on the first one, the lockdown one, I could literally get the last few snags done in the development kitchen. So the first thing that I did in COVID, apart from get this kitchen sorted, I went inside the house and went mad on decorating and decorated every room, which was really good fun. Not, but I wanted to get that done. But yeah, the family were around. Obviously, kids weren't at school, so we started to keep that creativity going when the lounges and the cozies were shut, and actually we were all pretty much furloughed on that first lockdown. My youngest son, I can't say it. My youngest son, Stanley, bit of a mouthful. He come down here with me, and we did some YouTube videos on brunches, and we called them banging brunches. And I put some of them on LinkedIn, and we put a few on YouTube, and then we ended up doing a meal kit through Great Food to You. We put 50 boxes together, and he wanted to get kids cooking, and I helped him with that. So it was like a school project. And then from that, he ended up getting an award from school, which was excellent cookery tutorials, and the school were really happy with it. And then we donated some of the £5 per every box went into Marcus Rashford's charity, Fair Share. So that was a really lovely project to keep that creativity going, and also help my son learn how to cook a bit, because even though I've got this kitchen, everyone's busy, they're at school and out and about and everything else with their activities. So that was one thing that we did to keep that creativity going. I've started to build my own website. It's not live yet, but I've got loads of recipes over the years that I've done that I've never really put on a menu, because they might not have been, right for that particular menu. So that will be hopefully live by this Christmas. It's going to be anthonybennett.com. And it'll just be a little place for me to just drop recipes on, which I'm really looking forward to getting over the line. And then the other thing we did, which actually my wife's sort of taken on, well, it was her idea anyway, and my friend Alex Marsh helped pull it together. When we went onto that website, Great Food to You, and when we know the people that run it, we've created a little meal kit on there that, say, my wife's looking after, which is called the Grub Guys, and that's vegan recipe kits. So there's 2 or 3 on there at the moment, and it's one of those. It's a nice thing to do. It's absolutely not a career defining moment for any of us, but it's just quite nice that some of that innovation that I've been involved in over the years, I can share with my wife, who is a chef as well by trade, and she's taken on that, and she's enjoying working on that concept. It's good fun, and she sells a few. It's certainly nothing to write home about, but it's nice to see that innovation flowing, and using different ingredients, and I've been really passionate about vegan food over the years, and that's rubbed off on my family. You'll see some of the videos that we did if you look up banging brunches. Stanley did one with the sausage, and then there's a burger that we developed. So it's sort of linked to that, really, but it's all very low key and it's good fun.
I think one thing that I appreciate about you is that you've not made your contribution to, let's say, gluten-free or vegan, or just people cooking for people with allergies. You've made it non-faddy. You've really made it about the person, and just to make them feel inclusive, so they can go to lounges and just eat gluten-free food or whatever it is, and it's not a big deal. It just sort of happens, so if I go with a party of 5 and someone just says, "Oh, can you just make mine gluten-free?" and the other person just says, "Yeah, normally, don't have to make a big fanfare about it. Oh, I'm vegan. Okay, great, not a problem." And it just happens. Whereas none of it is faddy. It's not about keeping up with the modern trends. It's just about making diners feel comfortable. I think
definitely.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good point. And as I say, I mentioned it earlier on, when I joined Loungers some 6 years ago, Alex Marsh, who was central operations manager then, he left 3 years ago, I think it was, and he's gone off to do some really good stuff. But he put those foundations in place. The separate gluten-free menu, the separate vegan menu were in place when I joined, and there was already some good stuff on there. So once those foundations were in place, once the customers understood that we were serious about it, it was easier for me to then go, well, actually, I've got these places where I can put these great ideas. I don't have to start selling the idea of a gluten-free menu, a separate gluten-free menu, or a separate vegan menu. actually that's there. So step back. How can we really improve those offers? How can we absolutely nail it? And it goes from finding out, seeking out the best products. So, for instance, the Beyond Burger, I think we were the second. I think M&B went first, or Honest Burger went first, then M&B, then it was Lounge. It was very close. We all launched in a very similar time, and it was really difficult because we had to, speak to the distributor who was bringing it over from the US. It was from the US at the time. It's made in Europe now, but there was a lot of work for me to just grab that Beyond Burger and put it on the Lounge's menu in the vegan and the gluten-free section. And so there's that element of cherry picking out the best product at the time, and then also, like I say, going to the lengths of developing your own stocks, sauces, marinades, developing the bun in lounges so that you can have a vegan bun, vegan brioche, for example, or a hot dog roll. So you've got that kind of dirty vegan going on, but actually also remembering that vegans, people who are on a vegan diet, don't always want to have dirty food every day. They might want a really nice, clean eating Super Bowl or a salad. So, okay, what do we do in terms of the dressings? How do we make it really punch in terms of that flavor profile? What's going to be the protein element because this person is, or this diner is vegan, for example? Where's the colors? Where's the textures? All of that detail I can now do as a food developer because actually the menus are in place. And as a consequence, and it's lovely, I see the good and the bad feedback from loungers, all brands, big groups get them, and independents. But there are so many positive emails and phone calls that come through directly to me through my Twitter feed or through Instagram or something. And customers reach out and just go, it's just amazing. Just thank you, for making us feel like we are not a byproduct, a bit part or an afterthought. We're actually like really important to you loungers and Cozy Club as a diner, equally as important. And we've been doing that for a long time, and it goes back to, like I say, it's the way I kind of think. It's not that'll do for the vegans, or that'll do for the gluten-frees, or that'll do for the meat eaters, or that'll do for the pescatarians, whatever. That doesn't come across my thought process at all. It's how can we make this really brilliant for everyone dining in the lounges and the Cozy Clubs?
No, it shows. It definitely shows. Yeah, Anthony, I want to just say thank you for your time today. And
no worries.
We've done an hour and a bit, and I'm conscious of your time because I know how busy you are. And but I could talk to you all day. But I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Dale. Lovely to speak, mate.
Thanks.
Take it easy.
You too. I'd like to say a massive thank you to Anthony for joining me on today's episode. If you want to jump over to all his socials, I'll link to them in our show notes. I know you're all busy, but please take a second to share on any of our social media feeds. It really helps others find us. And if you like this episode, then send it on to others in the industry too. I always want to hear your feedback, so email me at stelios@worldofceres.com anytime.